So this is the beginning of our space training mini-series, and the first teaching is one of my all-time favorites from Pattabhi Jois. It was a crowded primary series in India. Probably, I was a good decade ago now when this little story took place. And I was practicing towards the front of the Shala in India with Pattabhi Jois leading the class, which was very exciting, and Sharat and Saraswati were adjusting that class. And in India, everyone's mats are right next to each other and staggered to just squish all the people in that we possibly can. And it was powerful. When the class begins, we all come to the front of our class and we repeat the invocation with Guruji. You can just feel the energy in the room. It's just, the prana is so high. Everyone's so present. As the class begins, Pattabhi Jois calls out Surya Namaskara A, and we begin doing the sun salutes. And if you've ever been in a class with Guruji, if someone's off or someone's not doing something correctly, sometimes he would just yell across the room, "Hey!" And Surya Namaskara, first sun salute, he yelled at somebody. And you're always, you know, in your pose like, "Oh, he's not yelling at me. I'm doing everything right." Next sun salute, yells again. So I'm in the second row from the front, and probably everyone in the room was wondering who was getting yelled at, but I knew who was getting yelled at because the lady just in front of me, I could reach out and touch her, was just a little bit off in all of the vinyasas, which means if we were going to jump back, she jumped back a little bit ahead of everyone. If we were in chaturanga, she was already moving into up dog. And if we were in up dog, she was already moving into down dog. And so he yelled at her a few times, and we're doing the sun salutes, and the energy is so powerful, everyone breathing and moving together. And all of a sudden, this is the first time, the only time I've ever known this to happen, when I've been in a class with Pattabhi Jois, but he literally stopped teaching. He stopped teaching the class, and there was a room full, there had to be 80 people packed in this room, and everyone was dead silent. And we all just stood there, looking around, like, what's going on? And from the very back of the room, and this is when Guruji was in his 90s, so he walked rather slow with a little bit of a waddle. From the very back of the room, and it took forever, he slowly proceeded to walk through the students. Everyone's silent, looking around. Oh my gosh, what's going on? He gets right up in front of a student, this lady right in front of me, and says 2 words. "Why hurry?" And the lady said, she said, "I don't know." You can sit down. My favorite story of Guruji giving the most simple teaching with just 2 words. And the example in our practice is the bar that he holds so high is to be present in our vinyasas, to hold our consciousness high, and to use the vinyasas like articulation, that we stop and pause before we move into the next. And in this particular class, it was such a beautiful example because the room was filled with everyone holding their consciousness high and practicing chaturanga with the most mindfulness and focus and drishti. But one person being off, for me being close to her, I could just feel the energy off. I could feel that she was just kind of somewhere else. So in a way, sometimes I would say that's like being a little sloppy in our practice is being sloppy up here first. And the teaching for me, "Why hurry?" always brings me back to my own mat, and it helps remind me that this is a place where I can literally do mindful training. It's like our meditation, it's like a moving meditation. And it's also the place where we can do our space training. So if I'm in vinyasa and holding them, I'm really holding my mind and being very present. In the practice trains us and teaches that, to take this into the, off our mats, as I always say, and into our lives. And so this is one of my favorite teachings in life as well, because I realize, even as a yoga teacher, that the practice is constantly training me to be more present for the moments of my life. So I have another funny story to tell that I usually tell when I give this teaching. And this is the story of me driving to teach a Sunday morning class. And I was just running a little bit late. And if you guys are familiar with Bluebird Canyon, I was coming down Bluebird Canyon and kind of blew a stop sign. Well, I kind of slowed down a little bit, but went right through the stop sign. And sure enough, there was a police car waiting. Pulls up behind me. To make the story even better, the police officer, her name is Natalie. She was very cute, so we always called her the hot cop. And it was Natalie. So I'm sitting in my car and I see Natalie get out of the cop car and move towards my car to roll the window down. We don't do that anymore. I roll the window down and she says, "Good morning, Diana." And I said, Hi, officer. Hi, Officer Natalie. And she said, "You just blew that stop sign." "Yeah." She said, "Please tell me that you weren't going to yoga." And I imagined in that moment, honestly, I just had like a flash of funniness because I had just been teaching this recently. I had this image of like Patabi Joyce like slowly walking up to my little car and rolling down the window and Guruji's getting his finger and saying, "Why hurry?" Right? But it's a beautiful story because it's just an example of how often in life we're just rushing from one thing to the next, and rather than being fully present, we're oftentimes, even if we're not physically rushing in our mind, we're somewhere else, rather than being fully present in the moment or with the people that we're with. I think of this often, simple situations like, you know, if I'm having a coffee with someone, if I've made the time to have a 1 hour coffee with a dear friend, how much am I fully present for that? Or in my mind, am I already rushing to think of the next things I'm going to do that day or things I haven't done? And I think for all of us, we can find in our lives where we're in this perpetual state of trying to get to the next thing. And again, Ashtanga has so many lessons and so many ways for us to practice and train ourselves to be present. Whether it's just holding a chaturanga long enough to really focus and hold your mind, or whether it's even that perpetual thirstiness that we all have to like want to get the next pose, you know, or I want to get the next pose, or I recently had someone who's was injured, and so they are really like, I just want to get back to doing my practice the way I used to. And this is for all of us, we can all relate to that. And yet there's something really beautiful. I was telling the student, there's something really beautiful in the process of healing, in the process of sometimes limiting ourselves to what we can't always do, that brings us into the moment and helps shift the way we show up for our practice when we are injured or when we are waiting for that next pose because we're trying to, you know, work beautifully in the one that we're in, that it holds our mind to a place of, can I be present here? Can I be fully content here or happy here? Can I find where I can work in this more? And again, in our life is such a beautiful, beautiful lesson to start to, this week, ask yourself, why hurry? What am I rushing to get to? How much can I just fully be present for the people in my life, the moments in my life, what I'm doing right now in my life, and to embrace that more and be more present. So here's your homework for this week. Your quote for this week is 2 simple words. Why hurry? And your homework is to look around your life and see whether it's where you're driving or where you're with someone or where you're in your head somewhere, and find where you are like rushing a little bit ahead of yourself and not being fully present in the moment. And then apply your space training and try to pull away enough to create some space and just be fully present in the now. Namaste.